Are you a Procode developer and do you want to become more productive with the help of the Power Platform CLI? In this episode of Low Code Revolution, Kartik will tell us all about why we should use the Power Platform CLI. Stay tuned. Hi everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Low Code Revolution. We are in the first part of a series about the Power Platform CLI. We are going to highlight the Power Platform CLI in a bunch of episodes, and this is the first one. In this episode, Kartik Kannakasabesan is here, and he will talk all about the Power Platform CLI. He's going to tell us why we should use it, why it's so amazing. And I already did a lot of things with Power Platform CLI, and I totally love it. So I'm kind of opinionated here. But Kartik, welcome. And can you please introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Daniel. And by the way, full marks on pronouncing my last name. So we're already starting on a good note.
I know how hard it is to have a difficult last name, by the way.
Exactly, Laskowitz. So I am part of the product team, and I'm responsible for a lot of the developer experiences, specifically when it comes to code first developers collaborating with citizen developers. And so my job is to kind of look at what kind of experiences that we need to go provide to allow for this very fluid collaboration to happen between code first and citizen developers in that context. So that's my role within the Power Platform team.
Really cool role. And you have been working on the Power Platform CLI for how long now?
Actually, I joined when I joined the Power Platform team. That was my responsibility. Was the fact that we had this net new CLI that was kind of there, and it was to say, okay, well, what can we do? How can we go ahead and provide the right kind of capability for the broader community to be able to go do things before? I mean, as a matter of fact, I have a slide that kind of talks about why, because that's usually the first question everyone asks. It's like, okay, well, why do we do this? Because as you know, from your own history, as the fact is, as a developer, there were so many things that were available, right? And if you're like me, head scratching is a very painful exercise. And thankfully you're not. All right. But as it came to a developer, when we wanted to go look at, okay, if I wanted to go do things, whether it be with D365 or with Power Platform, as a developer, because we offered a variety of tooling, it was hard to kind of figure out where to get started. All right. Because typically as a developer, when let's say when someone in an organization tells you, well, go ahead and build an app, well, how do you know where to get started? We have plethora of SDKs. We have several APIs. Some of the APIs that we exposed were also undocumented, as you so well know. Right? We had PowerShell modules. We had stuff that was there on the Studio Surface and so on and so forth. So the raison d'etre, if you will, for the Power Platform CLI was to kind of really simplify that starting experience. Right? And that was kind of the genesis, if you will, around the Power Platform CLI. So it was like, okay, you have all these things. That's all great. Let's cut through the noise and just say these are the kind of things that are needed for a developer to go do things.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good thing because there are so many tools around there. Not even just the Microsoft tools, but also third-party tools, of course. So
right.
it gets fragmented so much. So I think that bringing it all together is a really good story here.
Mm-hmm. Well, in addition to that, and I'll go back to the slide here again, but in addition to some of that stuff, what we kind of decided was to take a step back a little bit too, because as you saw, some of the things that we had were also very platform centric in that context. So one of the things that we wanted to go do was to go ahead and say, okay, well, how can we go ahead and make this multi-platform, right? And again, that was one of the key focus areas that we wanted to go invest in. And at the same time, kind of evolve the CLI, not just as a standard CLI capability, but make it kind of the focal point of integration for all types of developer experiences. All right, whether it be for example, when you consume Power Platform CLI through the VS Code integration, under the covers, it's still using the Power Platform CLI. Likewise, when you're using it with GitHub Codespaces, GitHub Actions, and the Azure DevOps Task. As a matter of fact, the new version, so the 2.star version of the Azure DevOps Task, they're all using Power Platform CLI. And it's, if you see, what we're trying to go do is kind of simplify that entire experience. So there's one place to land and do a lot of things in that context. And that also permeates into some of the experiences that we're doing. So as a matter of fact, you have things like Power Pages. So you can now download, edit, open it up in VS Code. I know you also have the VS Code.dev experience within Power Pages as well. But if you want to edit those HTML pages offline, you're able to go do that. All right. You've been an avid user of the PCF stuff that we've been doing on the Pack CLI, so I don't have to tell you much there. But one of the cool things that we're currently doing right now, which is in preview in the command line, is the ability to go create custom connectors. And there's a lot of things that we're doing there to kind of fix that overall experience. One, custom connectors are now going to be part as a first-class entity within Dataverse. So there's work that we're doing on the CLI side that is going to emphasize help partners and customers to go build custom connectors using that common tooling that allows them to scale as part of the Dataverse offering in this context. So there are plenty of other capabilities there. I know, but we can talk more about some of the capabilities as you deem appropriate.
Yeah, about the custom connectors, I also feel like the Power Platform CLI advocates the best practices, because before we had the PACon CLI, and the PACon CLI, you can download whatever custom connector is out there, for instance, and you can upload whatever connector is out there. But within the Power Platform CLI, you made an obvious choice to go with solutions, right? So you have to add your custom connector to the solution, and that's best practice, of course, but not a lot of people, or a bunch of people, don't know it. And I think that advocating for those best practices is a really good choice as well.
Okay, well, Daniel, I've got you to thank for that. I mean, your session at Ignite with Scott Durr around connectors and how to use connectors in that context really kind of brought the point home, right? So thank you for doing that. But one of the key things that we, going back to the earlier slide, just like developers could go start from anywhere, we also brought in capabilities where it got, as applications scaled in an organization, it got people to a place which was unhealthy. And so right out of the gate, one of the key principles that we wanted to go use with the Power Platform CLI in particular was to make sure that we provided experience where that revisitation of a concept did not happen. The fact that you could continue accelerating once you've gone down the path and not be bothered about, oh, did I do this right? So that was one of the key, although it's maybe not be a big deal from an experience perspective, it was a very big deal for the team to make sure that that was not something that people had to encounter.
So what other advantages does the Power Platform CLI have?
Well, I mean, it's an amalgamation of, as I said, a lot of the developer use cases, as it were. So, for example, I mean, here's an example of something that one never thinks about. So, within the Power Platform CLI, you now have the ability to go ahead and authenticate, do single sign-on. So, in this example right now, I already have a list of different environments that I've authenticated to, right? But just to kind of show the point, I can go ahead and delete existing auth profiles. I'm going to clear it up, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new auth profile altogether. So here, I'll say pack auth create and hit enter. And that's one thing you'll notice is the fact that the semantic that one uses when using the Power Platform CLI, it is pack something whatever. So here I've got my MSAL window here. I'm going to select my user ID that I want to go use in this case, provide the appropriate password. And now presto voila, I have got my profile created. And again, I know that it's active because I've got the star against it, or the asterisk against it. And when I do something like a pack org list, it gives me a list of all the different environments to which this particular token has access to. And now if I now want to go ahead and switch between environments, all I have to go do is use a command like pack org select that will then go ahead and switch environments back and forth. So I don't have to go ahead and do, create different auth profiles as the case may be every single time I want to connect to a different environment. So that, it simplifies that developer experience, if you will, and kind of, as we said, Microsoft, we want to get rid of all the cliffs, and that was one of the big cliffs when dealing with such environments in this context.
Yeah, it's really helpful to have that, because I know from the old days that you had all the different profiles in there. It's way better to have it like this. And it's not just users that can authenticate, right? You can also use a service principal to authenticate.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, that's one of the key use cases that we've seen when people are, because one of the experiences that we've seen is people actually first try things out with the Pack CLI and then try to automate their processes. And that's, so when you want to test out to make sure that the authentication is right when it comes to service principal, you can test that out on the PAX CLI itself before you incorporate that into an automation process. I mean, out of the box, we support Azure DevOps and GitHub Actions, all right? But we've actually seen customers wrapping their scripts on top of PAX CLI to support things like Jenkins and Circle CI, as an example, for incorporating PAX CLI directly into their Azure DevOps pipelines, as the case may be. And speaking of which, one of the things that we did bring in was the fact that some of the functions that we talk about in this case is the fact that you can actually create environments. So here's an example where I'm now going ahead and creating an environment. All right, so I'm giving it a name. It's called PACadmin Create. Okay, and again, the imaginative person that I am, I'm going to use my name, so I'm going to call it Kartik Demo. All right, and just hit create it. Now, what happens in this case is, remember, I logged in the previous example. I logged in as myself. So the environment that I'm creating, by default, I am the owner of that particular environment. Now, what I'm going to go do is I realize, no, it needs to be owned by a service principal. All right. So in this case, I'm going to assign the user to a service principal account to make sure that I am not the owner, and the appropriate role that I need to go provide that particular service principal ID. All right. So that's kind of what we just did. So, going back to what you were talking about from a service principal perspective, here's another example of just doing that. And the reason why these kind of things are important is because in most organizations, you don't want individuals owning environments where you'll be deploying things to, unless it's a dev environment. So by giving it a generic, service principal account, that's what it owns. And typically when their environments for test and dev, you have this kind of practice happening in this context there. All right. Mm-hmm. But that was an example of what you just said about using service principal accounts in a different context.
Yeah. Really nice to have these commands available, and there's so many more than just this. And we're only hitting the top of the iceberg, right? Because we're doing so many more of these videos to show all the capabilities that are out there, and this is just a fraction of it. Mm-hmm. Well, and that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, in addition to that, like I said, there are plenty of resources that are available around the Power Platform CLI. So one short link is just go to aka.ms. The Power Platform CLI, all right? We also have things like Azure DevOps Hands-On Labs. So it's a GitHub repository where you can download all the relevant assets and try your hands out on running your own pipeline, as the case may be. Similarly for GitHub Actions, we also have a hands-on lab for the VS Code integration as well, along with a sequence of steps that you can go do. So there are plenty of ways to kind of get started with the CLI. Yes, we do have a standalone CLI that's also available on Windows, but just to be very clear, the CLI in and of itself, the way it's architected, is cross-platform. So it will work on Windows, Linux, and Mac. We expose that multi-platform capability through the VS Code instance. Now, we have had others asking about how we can actually install this on Mac and Windows. If you go to NuGet.org, you'll see the different versions of the Power Platform CLI there. So, give it a shot. Let us know.
Yeah, so on macOS, I'm a Mac user, so I know all about it. I just use the VS Code extension, and it helps a lot already, because it just pre-installs the whole CLI in there, and it gives you even a nice interface in there as well.
Right.
So that's a great one. Well, with that, thanks a lot, Kartik, for joining us in the show. And to all the viewers, make sure to subscribe to this channel and view all the other Low Code Revolution episodes that are out there. And I hope to see you at the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, Daniel. See ya. And thank you, everyone.